So, good morning, dear students of class 11 and also the students of class 12. Today, we are going to take up the poem The Gift of India, and it's composed by none other but Sarojini Naidu, whose young age photograph you can see on your screen right now. And Sarojini Naidu was a freedom fighter and a poet, a politician, and we'll just go through in brief a little bit about Sarojini Naidu before we begin with this poem. And let me tell you that she was also called the Nightingale of India. So let us now try to read a little about Sarojini Naidu before we read something about the poem and also read the text of the poem. So on your screen, as I am scrolling up, you can see Sarojini Naidu in her youth with her signature, and then once again the portrait of Sarojini Naidu comes up on your screen. Born this day, February 13, 1879. So Sarojini Naidu, this photograph of Sarojini Naidu was taken in 1940s. In the 1940s, let's read about Sarojini Naidu. Hindu poet, reformer and political leader, Sarojini Naidu was born on 13th of February 1879 in Hyderabad, India. Of Brahmin heritage, her original name was Sarojini Chattopadhyay or Sarojini Chatterjee. She was herself a Bengali but born and brought up in Hyderabad, which is now part of Andhra Pradesh or Telangana. And after graduating from the University of Madras, she studied in England at London and Cambridge universities. So she returned from there at the age of 19, and in 1925 she became the first Indian woman president of Indian National Congress Party. Active in Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation movement, she was jailed several times for nationalist activities. So as I told you, she was a freedom fighter, and she had to go to jail because of her love for her motherland. And this poem is also no exception. It's a patriotic poem, and it's also a poem which talks volumes about or rather against warfare, and how warfare actually causes the loss of human life. So in 1947, when India became independent, she became governor of United Provinces, now Uttar Pradesh. So she was the governor of Uttar Pradesh. In those days, it was called UP, but UP then stood for United Provinces. Now it stands for Uttar Pradesh. So a post she retained until her death on 2nd of March 1949. So born in 1879 and died in 1949. So in Lucknow, that was the place where she died. Naidu also wrote 3 books of poetry in English: The Golden Threshold, The Bird of Time, and The Broken Wing. So these are the 3 books she wrote, 3 books of poems, and because of her exceptional poems, she was given the name the Nightingale of India. So now let's look at a real photograph, though this photograph is broken in between, but still you can make out. This is the photograph. This was taken in 1915 during the First World War, and at that time India was under British rule, and when the Allied forces, they wanted to strengthen their power, they needed help from the colonies of Britain, and India being a colony of Britain in those times, many Indian soldiers, you can see the Sardar soldier wearing the turban or the pagadi, and next to him, sitting just to his left, you can see another Indian face. You can distinctly make out from the facial features in this photograph that there are both British as well as Indian officers and soldiers in this photograph. So this photograph, the caption is on your screen now: British and Indian officers of the 57th Wilds Rifles. It was taken on 6th of August 1915. So 1915 was also the year when Gift of India as a poem was written by Sarojini Naidu. So let's read a little bit about the poem first. The Gift of India is a poem written in 1915 by the Indian poet, freedom fighter and politician Sarojini Naidu. The poem is a tribute to the contribution of Indian soldiers in the First World War. Over 10 lakh Indian soldiers from the British Indian Empire served in the Allied forces in the First World War. A vast number of them sacrificed their lives. Indian troops fought in different locations of significance to the Allied stronghold and had an important share in many of the battles throughout the course of the war. However, the contribution of the Indian soldiers is overlooked in the vast expanse of the war's history. These selfless sacrifices of the Indian soldiers for the Western agitation are captured in Naidu's poem, The Gift of India. What happened was, India was not in war with any country at that time, but because India was a British colony, soldiers from the British Indian Army were deployed to various locations in Europe to fight in favor of the British and against the enemies of the British. So that's how many Indians who were soldiers in the British Army, or rather the British Indian Army, they sacrificed their lives, and their lives were gone, they died, and you saw the number, so many lakhs of them. Once again, I'll show you on the screen, vast number of them, over 10 lakh Indian soldiers, 10 lakh. And then these people, well, they were overlooked in the vast expanse of the war's history. I mean, they were not given due recognition for their sacrifice, because the supreme sacrifice is the sacrifice of one's life. These soldiers sacrificed their lives, although they had no reason to do so. It was just plain orders that they were following, and that's what Sarojini Naidu writes about. So this poem is a tribute to those soldiers, those unsung heroes who laid down their lives for a cause which was not their own. The poem not only concentrates on the theme of soldiers making their ultimate sacrifice for someone else's war, but also talks about the numerous benefits the foreign countries reaped from India. So numerous benefits which the foreign countries got from India. The poet regards these benefits as gifts given by India to the colonizers. So the poem can be regarded as a kind of reminder or a kind of appeal to the Allied forces to remember the Indian contribution to their victory. So this is the briefing about the poem. It's a kind of reminder. Now, written in 1915, remember this poem was written in 1915, and that was the time when all this was actually really happening, and history has proof of that. Now, here on your screen we have the page from your textbook, and we will just go through the text of the poem first, and then we will go into line by line and stanza by stanza explanation and understanding of the text of the poem. So let's see what the poem is all about. I'm zooming in so that all of you can see very clearly on your screen as I scroll, as I recite the lines, or rather read out the lines for you. So this is The Gift of India by Sarojini Naidu. I am reading the text first. Is there aught you need that my hands withhold? Rich gifts of raiment, or grain, or gold? Lo, I have flung to the east and the west priceless treasures torn from my breast, and yielded the sons of my stricken womb to the drumbeats of the duty, the sabres of doom. Gathered like pearls in their alien graves, silent they sleep by the Persian waves. Scattered like shells on Egyptian sands, they lie with pale brows and brave broken hands. They are strewn like blossoms mown down by chance on the blood-brown meadows of Flanders and France. Can he measure the grief of the tears I weep, or compass the woe of the watch I keep, or the pride that thrills through my heart's despair, and the hope that comforts the anguish of prayer? And the far sad glorious vision I see of the torn red banners of victory, when the terror and the tumult of hate shall cease, and life be refashioned on anvils of peace, and your love shall offer memorial thanks to the comrades who fought on the dauntless ranks. And you honor the deeds of the dauntless ones. Remember the blood of my martyred ones, or the martyred sons. So Sarojini Naidu is giving a reminder, as I told you in the beginning, to the British Empire, because this poem was composed in 1915. So that was more than 100 years ago, and she is trying to give a reminder to the British Raj, or the British Empire, that when the war gets over and when you offer honors and pay homage to your own people, the whites, the British soldiers, please don't forget, my dear sons, the sons of India, they were the gifts I gave you. They were the gift, rather, which I gave you. Don't forget them. Pay true honor to them too. So this is the text of the poem. Now let's try to analyze, let's try to understand the text line by line. So beginning with the first stanza, actually here in your textbook all the stanzas are fused together, but originally this poem has 6-line stanzas and there are total of 4 stanzas. So the first 6 lines comprise the first stanza of the poem, and let's see what's written in the first stanza. Is there aught you need that my hands withhold? Is there aught you need that my hands withhold? Rich gifts of raiment, or grain, or gold? What is it that you need from me, which my hands are holding back? Are you expecting rich gifts of raiment, or grain, gold? You want treasures from me? Lo, I have flung to the east and the west. I have thrown, whether to the east or to the west, I have thrown priceless treasures already. So what is there in food grains and gold and money? I have given you my priceless treasures. Priceless treasures torn from my breast. This is Mother India speaking in this poem. Mother India, through Sarojini Naidu's composition, is trying to speak to the imperial rulers, the British crown, that I have torn from my breast my own children, and they are priceless gifts, priceless treasures. I have sacrificed so many of my children's lives. So what do you expect? Nothing can be more valuable than that. And yielded the sons of my stricken womb to the drum beats of the duty. I have borne these children, they are my own children born in my womb. But my womb was pained. My womb was put under immense pain because I gave away those children whom I had borne with so much of pain to do their duty, to serve the British crown. Drum beats of duty refers to military duty. So I sacrificed them. I gave them away to you. The sabers of doom. Saber. Saber is sharp teeth. Death was looming over them. I knew very well that I was sending them to face death. Yet I had to let them go. They were my children. I sacrificed them for you, for the drum beats of the duty, the sabers of doom, even if I knew that they were going to give their lives in course of doing their duty. I let it happen. And where are they now? So the first stanza comes to an end. And where are they now? They are now gathered like pearls in their alien graves. They are no longer in the soil of India. They had to leave the country for the sake of their duty to serve the British Army elsewhere in Europe or in America, wherever they were deployed. And there they died, and there they were buried. Their bodies were not brought back. They were given a burial in some foreign country. Alien means foreign, something which is not within one's own country. And they are gathered like pearls in their alien graves. Those graves inside which their remains can be found. They are lying there just like pearls lie inside the oyster. So they are gathered like pearls in their alien graves. Use of simile. You can see use of alliteration. Sons of my stricken womb. Drum beats of duty. So you have repetition of alphabets in successive words in the same line. And then gathered like pearls is a simile. Silent they sleep. Once again alliteration. Silent sleep. Silent they sleep by the Persian waves. Persian waves, we are talking in terms of the Middle East. Europe and the Middle East, we are talking in terms of the Persian Gulf. We are talking in terms of the ocean, the Arabian Sea. So, they sleep because they are eternally asleep. They are dead. They are lying inside their graves. Silent they sleep by the Persian waves. Not in India. Far away, somewhere near Iran, present day Iran. Scattered like shells, once again a simile, and once again alliteration, scattered shells, scattered like shells on Egyptian sands. Different areas of the world are being referred to here. We have the reference of Persia or Iran. We have the reference of Egypt, which is in Africa, scattered like shells on Egyptian sands. They're scattered, just like shells are scattered on the seashore. When there is a low tide in the morning, if you go to the seashore, you will find lots of shells lying on the exposed sea beach, because the water has gone far away into the sea and much of the beach is revealed and you can see the shells scattered all over it. This is the right time to collect the shells. So are my children, scattered all over Egypt. They lie with pale brows and brave broken hands. Look at the alliteration once again. Brows, brave, broken. They lie with pale brows. Brow refers to forehead. Pale forehead refers to actually the pale face. When a person dies, blood circulation stops and the face turns pale. That's why they lie with pale brows and with brave broken hands. Their hands are broken. They were injured during the course of the First World War when they were fighting, and eventually they succumbed to their injuries. So not only broken hands, here broken hands is just an indication of the injuries suffered which led to subsequent death of these Indian soldiers in foreign soil. So they were away from home and they lost their lives fighting for the cause of the British. They are strewn like blossoms, scattered. Strewn also means scattered, like blossoms, like flowers, mown down by chance. By chance, sometimes if flowers are crushed under our feet or under the wheels of a vehicle, what will be the condition of those flowers? So are my children now. Their condition is like that. Mown down by chance. So many examples of simile. They are strewn like blossoms. Mown down by chance. Chance has been personified. Personification. Chance. On the blood brown meadows, again alliteration. On the blood brown. When blood flows, it is red. And then as it coagulates, as it dries up, it turns brown in color. On the blood brown meadows of Flanders and France. You just saw the black and white photograph taken in France, Flanders, 1915. Indian and British officers and soldiers together in a group photograph. So the meadows of Flanders and France were battlefields where the First World War, a portion of the First World War was fought. And there they lie now, my children, all dead. They are scattered on the blood-brown meadows of Flanders and France. Can you measure the grief of the tears I weep? Or compass the woe of the watch I keep? Can you measure? Mother India is asking the British monarch, the British rulers, can you measure the amount of sorrow and the amount of tears that I weep? Can you measure it? You cannot. Because I lost my children, so many of them. We've already read in the introduction, 10 lakh Indian soldiers were involved. Can you measure the grief of the tears I weep? Can you compass the woe of the watch I keep? Alliteration, woe of the watch. So, can you compass? Compass means also to measure or to judge. Can you judge? Can you measure the woe or the sadness in my heart, as I keep watch, as I keep watching and waiting and hoping and longing for their return, just like a mother does. The son has gone to war. Mother's watchful eyes are longing for his return. The watch I keep. Or the pride that thrills through my heart's despair. Despite the despair in my heart, I have an amount of pride in my heart too, that they are my children and they have made me proud. But you cannot measure that pride despite my despair. And the hope that comforts the anguish of prayer. And the hope which comforts me when in sadness I pray. Anguish is pain. When I pray for the safety and security of my children. And that prayer in itself tries to provide me with hope that maybe someday they will return. But heart to heart, I know very well they won't. They are scattered all over Europe and America. They are buried in alien lands. I know that. Still I pray and I hope and I long and I watch. So that is what Mother India says. And the far sad glorious vision I see of the torn red banners of victory. I see a vision that holding up a torn but red banner, my sons are proclaiming victory. That they are declaring that they are victorious. The red banner or the red flag signifies war or warfare. It is also the color of youth, vigor and victory. So, I have this vision that maybe my own children, the true sons of India, have indeed achieved victory. When the terror and the tumult of hate shall cease, when this phase of the First World War will get over, so much of hatred and so much of terror in the hearts of people, innocent people, people who are not directly involved in the warfare, the terror that they feel, and the entire world situation is tumultuous or topsy-turvy. When all this will finish, because everything comes to an end sooner or later. So when all this will cease or finish, and life be refashioned on anvils of peace, and life will once again renew itself, refashion itself, revive, the world will recover from the suffering, the destruction, the war. In the aftermath of the war, there will be once again rebuilding of the world. So on the anvils of peace, what is an anvil? It's a piece of solid iron on which red hot iron objects are kept and hammered by the blacksmith. If you go to the workshop of a blacksmith, you will get to see an anvil. It has a pointed end on one side and a flat top. It's made of solid iron and it's used for keeping other red hot iron pieces on it and then hammering with a big hammer. So anvil helps to give shape to something, red hot iron. In the same way, when peace will reign supreme once the war gets over, then peace will work like an anvil, because then the world will rebuild itself. So a new world will be created, and all that has been destroyed will be refreshed and reconditioned, renovated and rebuilt. So when life gets refashioned on anvils of peace, and your love shall offer memorial thanks. And then it will be time for you to offer thanks to the deceased or the dead soldiers, the British soldiers in particular, who have sacrificed their lives, and at the cost of their lives you have won this victory. So it will be time for you to show your love to them, and you will do memorial services. You will build memorial pillars or monuments, and you don't have to go very far. If you go inside the Binaguri cantonment, you will get to see the memorial, the Bogra Memorial Tower inside the cantonment. You have the crossroads, and the road goes around it. There's a round park with 4 lanes on 4 sides, just after the bridge, railway bridge. Once you cross the bridge, you come to the Bogra Memorial Tower. And it was built in memory of all those Indian soldiers who laid down their lives, sacrificed their lives during the Bangladesh war in the year 1971. So why I am saying this? Because this is what is normally done by the governments in different countries. You cannot pay homage to each and every soldier individually once they are dead. And some of them, the remains are also not found. So, just take out the list of names who have gone missing in the war, whose bodies may or may not have been found, and then build a memorial and put a memorial tablet in front and inscribe the names of all those who died. And every year on Victory Day, people will gather and some kind of government program, function or memorial service will be organized, some flower wreaths will be laid down. So that's how things happen everywhere in the world. So that is what Mother India is trying to say. That is what Sarojini Naidu is trying to say here. That when peace is restored and the world is rebuilt, and when you try to commemorate those soldiers who have given their lives out of your love and out of your compassion, when you try to pay homage and show honor to them, to the comrades who fought on the dauntless ranks, you want to offer memorial thanks to those compatriots, comrades, friends who fought together side by side, dauntlessly, with full of courage. They fought in the different ranks. Ranks are platoons or groups of the soldiers. So when it will be time for you to pay homage to these soldiers, these who had given their lives during the course of the war, and you honor the deeds of the dauntless ones, and when it will be time for you to honor especially the ones who have shown exemplary courage. In India nowadays we talk about the Veer Chakra, Paramveer Chakra, given posthumously on Republic Day. President of India hands over these honors for bravery. So when it is time for you to give such awards to the special ones who have shown exemplary bravery, courage, because of whom actually you have won the victory, remember at that time, don't forget, but remember the blood of my martyred sons. Don't just honor the British soldiers and officers. Remember my sons too, because they fought together and they have also laid down their lives. My children, The Indian soldiers who served in the British Army, in the or rather the British Army or the Anglo-Indian Army, if you call it that way. So don't forget my sons. They too deserve to be honored. So it's a reminder, as I told you in the beginning also, that this poem is basically a reminder which Sarojini Naidu tries to give to the British rule and the British government, that now my children are dying, laying down their lives for you people. You, the British, have ordered them, so they have gone because they have to do their duty. They are serving their British bosses and British superiors. They have to take orders and carry them out. But many of them have since lost their lives, and they have lost their lives, so they deserve to be honored, just as the white soldiers, so also the native Indian soldiers. Both should be honored equally by the government. So this is what Sarojini Naidu tries to say, and the title of the poem is therefore very, very apt: The Gift of India. The Indian soldiers, or rather the soldiers in the British Army who were Indians, they were actually like a gift that India had given to the British Crown at the time when the Allied forces were fighting against their enemies during the course of the First World War. So I think I have been able to give you the line-by-line explanation of this poem. Just remember that there are 4 stanzas. Every 6th line makes a stanza. So the 4 stanzas of this poem have been explained just now. I expect all of you to go through your workbook and the detailed summary of the poem, the note on the title of the poem, the theme of the poem. Please go through. Everything is provided in your workbook. So if you go through in detail, and if you particularly go through the areas which you find difficult and see the notes provided in the workbook, everything will become very, very clear to you. So that's it for this class. Thank you.